Marjorie's calling in from New York to ask us, who are we to judge how God governs his world? Um, I'm not aware that there is a God governing anybody, but why wouldn't I be allowed to judge? I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Good evening. May I clarify what I told the screener?
Yeah, yeah.
So I actually put in the type, I said, and when it says topic or question, I have a word of the Lord for Matt, and I have one question about sovereignty. And what I told the screener was that everyone governs something. You guys govern this channel, people govern cities and nations, and we run them the way that we want. So how do we, yes, we can judge, but in light of the fact that are we free from the harm that we say other people or God does? That was
Well,
my,
I'm confused. So I know you've got it. You think you've got a word of the Lord for me. We'll get to that in a second. I'll make sure you
okay,
do that. But do you believe in a devil too?
yes,
Is God the good one and the devil the evil one?
evil as in what? That the devil is God?
No, no, no. I'm saying there's God and then there's the devil, and you think
Right.
God is good and the devil is evil, right?
I think God is, and that He is. And yes, I do believe He's good.
Okay, well that's what I asked. So you believe God's good.
Right,
Do you believe the devil is
right.
evil?
Yes.
So what criteria did you use to judge them to determine that God is the good one and the devil is the evil one?
Excellent question.
I know.
The, the outcomes, the intent, the purpose,
You're just giving me single words that have no substance here. They're
because
not
I
arguments of
can't see your
evidence.
face, so I don't want to interrupt and get yelled at. I'm sorry. I
No,
can't see your
so
face.
I'm asking,
No,
so you
right.
called in to say, who are we to judge God? But you've judged God and determined that God is good.
No, no, no. My question was
Yes.
regarding sovereignty.
No.
So, okay.
Y- you said that the whole thing was, who are we to judge God or how God governs his world?
Right. Yes.
Right.
When
And yet
we
you
also govern things,
I'm not I don't so where's the demonstration that there's a God that governs anything?
okay, that's just some people's belief system, right?
Well,
Like whether you
it's
agree
it's
with it
the
or
belief
not.
system you need. It's the belief system you need to defend. You're calling in to say that there's a God who governs things, and I'm saying, how can we know
Yes.
that?
Well, I've heard you guys talk about what you did and didn't like on other occasions, like, why would God allow cancer
No,
in children?
sure,
No?
Marjorie, you're calling in to defend the notion that there's a God that governs. What is the
Yes.
demonstration that that's true?
I'm calling in about a question about sovereignty. That if we govern,
Marjorie,
for
Marjorie,
yes,
you think
yes,
there's a God that is sovereign, correct?
yes,
Prove it.
it's difficult, but
Not my
I would
problem. I don't
say,
believe it. I don't tend to believe things that are difficult or impossible to prove.
right. I've
Maybe
heard his
Eric will have a
voice.
different way of phrasing the question that'll be more helpful for you. I don't
Yeah.
know how to
I
do
I've
mean,
that
heard
and
his
prove it.
voice.
hey, Marjorie, by your admission, what I'm gathering here is that you can't think of a good way to demonstrate the existence of this thing that you're claiming we are judging. Is
Um,
that correct?
could you say that one more time?
We're asking you to please demonstrate, give us some evidence that the thing that you claim Matt and I are judging actually exists. Because I could say, hey, you're judging the fairy in my backyard by not believing it or something like that. But I have to demonstrate, that's on me to demonstrate that a fairy lives in my backyard. You're claiming that your
Right.
God exists, and you're claiming that we have judgments about him, me and Matt, but you aren't demonstrating to us, showing it us, presenting any evidence that this God actually exists.
Right. I'm kind of lost. Please forgive me
Well,
because
it's okay. It's kind of a
I was
non-starter. Based on what I'm saying is that the conversation is a non-starter because we have to first agree that something exists before we can start talking about judgments of this thing.
right.
And even go back to the
So,
beginning. What Matt was trying to establish earlier was you're claiming. This is what I gathered. If I'm wrong, correct me.
okay,
You're saying that
sure.
me and Matt make judgments about your God, and who are we to do that, right? But when you right,
Yeah.
because that's in your thing here. You're asking who are we to judge how God governs, right? Who are we
But
as humans to judge such a thing,
when
right?
and may I just add the rest of it that I told the screener?
Uh,
When we govern things, right? Who are we to judge how God governs his world when we govern things and we do the way that we want?
right.
Can I,
So going back,
Well, if I'm in
Marjorie,
charge of something, can people judge me and determine whether or not I'm doing a good job?
they can. Doesn't make them
Yeah.
right.
So
Marjorie,
sure, it doesn't make them right. You're correct.
Marjorie, do you
Right.
think the way God does things is good and just and right?
I think God has perspectives that we don't always have.
I'm
For
asking you
example,
Marjorie. I'm asking you directly for your opinion about something. For
okay, I'm
instance,
sorry. Go ahead.
are you a Christian, Marjorie?
I am.
Okay. Do you think God sending Jesus to die for mankind was a good thing?
It benefited humans. It
Okay.
benefits,
Is that a good thing?
yes.
Okay. You
If
just
that
passed
was the
so
methodology
Marjorie,
he chose to
Marjorie,
use,
right there,
uh-huh.
Marjorie, you just passed judgment on God. It was positive judgment, but judgment nonetheless.
I
So who are
never
you
said
to
you
do that?
couldn't judge. Please forgive me.
Then
I wasn't
what?
trying to say you couldn't judge.
Well, obviously we can all judge, but you're asking who are
Yes,
we to do such a thing? So I can flip that on you and say, who are you to judge that sending
yes.
Jesus was good?
So may I give just a earthly example so that you understand what I'm saying? We look at a CEO, we hear news that this CEO is about to lay off 10,000 people, and everyone's coming at the CEO like, you're so terrible, how these people won't have jobs, they won't have money, the holidays are coming, like, all the things that people say. But the CEO governed his company accordingly. So to us, it looks terrible. But he or she had to make a choice and had to lay off some people.
Can the CEO
That's
be
not
wrong?
always
Can the CEO be wrong?
from my point of view. If I was losing my job, it would
Actually
hurt.
wrong, not just a matter of opinion. Wrong. Is it possible for a CEO to make a decision that is wrong, like objectively wrong?
For his company?
Yes.
Excellent question. But if it's
I
his
know.
company, right? If it's his
Okay,
company, who am I to say
Marjorie,
can't lay anybody off?
Marjorie,
I'm sorry.
Marjorie, CEOs don't own a company.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily own a company. So
Okay.
let's assume, though, that I'm the CEO of my company, which I am.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it possible for me to make bad decisions as
We
the
all do.
CEO?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it possible for God to make bad decisions?
No.
Why not?
Because the God of my understanding is perfect.
Yeah, but you have a God of your understanding, but we have no demonstration that that God is real or that it's actually perfect. So if I can be wrong and God can't, why can I do something that God can't do? Does that make me more powerful than God?
No, but you have a perspective from where, well, CEOs can own a company, but
Sure, they can, but
you
they
have
don't
a,
necessarily own a company. A chief executive
absolutely,
officer isn't
absolutely.
necessarily the owner. Sure. So
You're
the point I was
correct,
trying to
depending
get
on the
to is that
corporation.
the point I tried to get to is that a CEO can make mistakes, and then people can judge that CEO, and they could be correct that the CEO made a mistake, or they could be incorrect. And so if I judge God, the mere fact that you claim there's a God that's perfect doesn't impress me at all, because I'm not aware that there is a God at all, and I'm definitely not aware of a perfect God.
Right. So if the CEO, if we can still go with that example, makes a decision and I don't like it, I'm not
Mhm.
his or her peer, I'm not, I don't work at the company or whatever, I could just say it's a bad decision, but I don't
Yep.
know all the ins and outs, right?
Okay, but how did you determine it was a bad condition? Did you have enough information to determine it was bad?
I was simply looking at, oh, tens of thousands of people lost their jobs.
Okay, but were you right that it was a bad decision, or were you wrong?
I don't work at the company. I wouldn't know. I don't know what the
So,
books look
so
like.
Marjorie, here's
I
the
don't know.
problem. We keep trying to do this analogy, and every time I ask you the hard questions, you avoid them, and every time I ask you the easy
I
questions, you
promise
come
you
up
I'm not.
every time.
Please
Okay,
give
yeah,
me
I'm pretty
another chance.
sure you are, and you're fucking interrupting me, which is not a really good move right now. So, if there's a CEO and it makes
Yes.
that CEO makes an objectively bad decision, and there are people that
Mhm.
agree with it and people that disagree. Their opinions are irrelevant. The people who think it was bad are correct, right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. If there is a God and that God makes a decision, and I think that decision is objectively wrong, how could we tell
Yes.
whether or not I'm correct?
How can we tell if I'm correct? Well, do you have all the information available?
No. But do I have
And
enough information is the question.
you'd have to qualify enough.
Well, so for example, the God that you're advocating for,
Yes.
did that God punish Adam and Eve and every one of their descendants for disobeying?
Yes.
And see, I don't think that story happened, but if it did happen, I think that God is fundamentally immoral, because according to the story, Adam and Eve ate from the tree of what?
The knowledge of good and evil.
Right. So before they ate from that tree, they didn't have an understanding of good and evil, did they?
But they were given the command not to eat from that
Okay.
tree.
But so see, here's the thing. I just asked a very specific question that's going to expose
Mhm.
the flaw in your thinking. And instead of
Okay.
answering it, you answered a different question. So here we go. Before they ate from the tree, did they know right from wrong?
No.
Okay. If they didn't know right from wrong, how could they possibly know that it was wrong to disobey God and eat from that tree?
They confessed that they knew they weren't supposed to eat from it.
I'm sorry, Marjorie. The question I asked, if they did not know right from wrong, how could they have possibly known that it would be wrong to disobey God?
Forgive me. If I tell my child not to do something,
I'm sorry, Marjorie. Your child already knows right from wrong. Adam and Eve did not know right from wrong. How, if they don't know right from wrong, how can they possibly know that any particular action they take, any action, would be wrong?
because they were told the day you eat, you'll die.
But they don't
That's
know
not,
that it's
that's
wrong. they don't know that it's wrong, and they don't know that and it's not even wrong to die. So there's not only is dying not wrong or immoral, they had no understanding of what would be wrong. How can you punish someone for doing something wrong if they didn't know it was wrong?
I told you not to touch it.
I asked you to answer the question.
And Marjorie, you're
So
sidestepping the question.
I'm really not. How can
Yeah,
they?
you really are. I've done this for 20 years. You're doing that. You really are. It's
I
really simple.
understand that.
It's really
Can I-
simple, Marjorie. If someone does
It's
not know the difference,
disobedience.
shut up, Marjorie, and answer my question. If someone doesn't know the difference between right and wrong, how can you hold them responsible for doing something that is wrong?
Okay. So your question is, how can you hold someone responsible for doing wrong if they don't understand that what is quote unquote wrong, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If you punish someone and
I
they didn't know
understand.
right from if you punish someone for doing something wrong and they didn't know right from wrong, is that moral or immoral? The punishment.
They had a command not to touch it.
I'm sorry, you keep avoiding the question. So let's do this really easy. Let's say your baby is 1 year old and doesn't
Uh-huh.
understand that it would be wrong to take a crayon and draw on the wall. They just don't know that that's wrong.
Right.
If they take a crayon and draw on the wall, would it be moral for you to beat the shit out of them and throw them in the basement for the rest of their life?
No.
No. And what did your God do when two people did something that was wrong that they didn't know was wrong?
Did I ever tell the child not to write on the wall?
I'm sorry. Every time I ask you the question that exposes the absolute bullshit in your beliefs, you come back with a different question on a different subject. What did God do to the two people who did not know right from wrong when they did something wrong? What did God do? Did God curse them and all of their descendants and damn them
Yes.
to hell absent salvation?
He punished them. Yes.
Yeah. And so God is immoral in that story.
Marjorie, I'm gonna try to reframe exactly what Matt just said, the point he was getting to. Let's roll back just one step. I'm
Okay.
gonna try to reframe this. I'm gonna ask you a series of really short questions. Please answer
Sure.
these succinctly, okay? Going back to the CEO example, okay?
Uh-huh.
CEO lays off 10,000 people, all right?
Mm-hmm.
From the perspective of the 10,000 people with their families now losing their income, that was a bad decision, right? Because from the worker's point of view, my family,
Yes. From the perspective
okay,
of the
yes.
family, yes.
But from the CEO's point of view, the bottom line's now been improved, and that's good for the company, right? So that was a good decision, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Let's say instead now the CEO made a decision that laid off everybody and tanked the company. That's a universally bad decision, right? Because now the people are out of work and income, and the company's now kaput, right? Bad decision, right?
I wouldn't say universally bad.
I mean, both options you're examining, both from the CEO and the human or the workers, bad decision, right? The company's gone, and people are out of work.
But we both know that there are people who actually do that.
I, I'm asking you, was that a bad decision? If the goal for the CEO is to improve the bottom line and he tanks the company, bad decision. If the goal of the worker is to make money for their families and they're laid off because of the CEO's decision, bad decision, right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now hold on to that. We now have a universally bad decision made by the CEO. Let's transfer this analogy now to the God in the garden. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can make all kinds of arguments against this God, saying this God made a decision that both harmed mankind and harmed his sovereignty or his plan. He allowed the serpent to deceive Eve. He set up a scenario, which what Matt was bringing up, that Adam and Eve couldn't have possibly have passed because they didn't have the knowledge of good and evil. They didn't have the knowledge that this was a bad thing they were about to do. God made a decision that both harmed his plan and his sovereignty and our prosperity. Universally bad decision, right?
Mr. Eric,
Yes.
they were told not to eat of the tree.
It doesn't matter what they
Okay.
were told. It's what God allowed based on his own decision. Hopefully you
Wait, tell
understand
You're
why we
right.
can look at that. Hopefully
sorry.
I'll wrap this up here. Hopefully you can understand how we can look at that and go, yeah, bad move, God. Universally bad decision. Thank you so much. Thankfully, we don't think that God exists or these stories even happened. But hypothetically, if they did, we can look at that and judge it because we're affected by it.
Right. So I'm missing why the command not to eat of the tree
Could
is
your God have
disregarded.
could your God have accomplished his goals with or without the command? He's all powerful, right?
Which
So the
which goals? Salvation?
salvation,
Which goals?
sovereignty, human prosperity, all those things. The command is an irrelevant point in the situation because God, with or without that command, could have accomplished his goals. The command is just a distraction. It doesn't matter what Adam
If
and
they
Eve was
had
told. It's the decisions and the things that God allowed happen. That's a question here.
so if they had eaten without the command, I'd have to agree with you. But they had an express command, which
How do they know? How do they know that it would be wrong to disobey the express command? I asked this 20 minutes ago.
because
It was a good
they
question,
were
then it's still a
told
good
they would,
question.
and 20 minutes ago I told you they were told they would die. I'm sure they understood I want to live.
No, you don't. Wow. How can this is so incredibly frustrating.
I'm sorry.
If they're told they're going to die, how do they know that's wrong? What's wrong with dying, Marjorie?
You cease to live. You cease to fulfill whatever
Okay.
you wanted to do. You cease to have your relationship.
Is that wrong?
You cease
Is
to
that
have,
wrong? Is that wrong?
when you were supposed to live forever. I think so.
Well, I'm about, like, I would be bald now after ripping my hair out if I weren't already bald. The fact of the
I'm so
matter,
sorry,
Marjorie,
Matt.
is that it is immoral to hold someone responsible for something that they do not understand. If I tell you, do not eat from the tree on your left, and you don't know your left from your right, and you eat the tree on the left, should you be held responsible?
No.
Cruel. If I tell you not to eat this tree because you'll die, and you don't know what right and wrong is, how can I hold you responsible for doing something wrong?
Because
It would
we
be
are
just as
making,
immoral. It would be just as immoral to hold someone responsible for not knowing that what they did was wrong as it would be to hold someone responsible for not knowing that they ate from the tree on the left. If they don't know left from right, if they don't know right from wrong.
but now we're assuming we know all that they knew.
No, we're not, Marjorie. What tree did they fucking eat from?
The tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And before they ate from that tree, did they know the difference between right and wrong? You already said no.
But we're
You said no.
assuming.
No. I give up.
Please don't.
No, I'm giving up. I'm letting Eric continue. But I don't know how else to explain this. I even came up with what I think is a really great analogy with left and right, and
You
you got it
did, and
immediately. You got it immediately in the analogy, and you can't get it in the actuality. Every time I asked a question that should expose this, you wanted to jump to a different analogy, and then when I do an analogy that you got immediately, you refuse to connect that to the situation. It's really simple. If your 1-year-old grabs a marker and scribbles all over the wall and they don't know it's wrong, is it immoral for you to punish them at all?
yes,
Then if Adam and Eve did not know right from wrong, it must also be immoral to punish them for doing something wrong, correct?
if they did not know right from wrong, yes.
And you said that
Did
they
they know?
didn't.
Yeah. Did they know right from wrong before eating the fruit?
How can we know what they knew?
Oh my God.
Except for what the text says.
Because the text says that they ate the fruit, therefore they gain the knowledge of right and wrong, and they now must be prevented from eating the fruit of life so they don't gain immortality.
Right,
Okay, so that
right.
implies that by eating the fruit, you gain the attributes of those fruit, right? So simple basic deduction says that before they ate the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, they didn't have that. And you made Matt rage quit, by the way. Congrats. But do you understand what we're saying, Marjorie? I can't believe, Marjorie, for a moment here that you
No,
really
I
don't
do
understand what we're
understand.
saying to you here. Okay, so
I do
Marjorie,
understand.
so why are you so uncomfortable as to admit that, hey, yeah, Adam and Eve didn't have the knowledge of good and evil before they ate the fruit? And they committed an
Because
action
we
without that knowledge, and then they committed an action without that knowledge, and now God punishes them for that. It would be the same way as punishing a 1-year-old for drawing on the wall. They don't have any understanding what they're doing. Same thing.
because we don't know all that they knew or didn't know.
Marjorie, I just walked you through it with detail,
You
right?
did.
And if we
You
if we
did.
don't know, if we don't know, by the way, that's a completely separate conversation. If we don't know, that's a deficiency on your God's part because He could have put enough in the Bible for us to know. But from my point of view, we know enough here to look at that and judge that as immoral, because this is the same. God has punished both these infantile humans plus all their descendants who didn't even exist yet for a wrong that those two original humans couldn't have even comprehended as being wrong. That's immoral. And I think an almighty, all-loving, all-knowing God could have come up with a better system than this.
I'm sorry, I missed a
And
little
that's
bit.
fine.
I
No, it's
missed a little
fine.
bit because I went up to the restroom. But when you say that we have to speculate about what they knew, if
Right.
they already knew right from wrong, what did they gain from eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?
The death process. And their eyes were
So
open.
the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil doesn't teach you good from evil. It teaches you about death.
No, you said, what did they gain? And I said, the death process began. And their eyes were opened.
Yeah, but
What does the eyes
what I'm
open
what
mean
I'm
thing
saying
there?
is, what did the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil do? Did it teach them right from wrong?
Did it teach them right from wrong? Well, we know that they understood that they were naked and they were
Would
ashamed.
Marjorie,
Is it wrong to be naked?
No.
So before they ate the tree, they didn't know that it was wrong to be naked. Then they ate the fruit and they knew that it was wrong to be naked. And now you're saying it's not wrong to be naked. So who's right?
The scriptures just say their eyes
I
were
don't.
open, they were naked, and they were ashamed. And they hid from the presence of God.
Why would they be? So if they were ashamed after getting the knowledge of good and evil, doesn't that mean
Right.
it's evil to be naked?
Never thought about that one, but okay. I can go with that. That they
So
thought so. That they thought so. Not that I think
well,
so.
if the tree gave them the knowledge of good and evil, then clearly they're right when they say that it's shameful to be naked.
Okay.
So it must be shameful to be naked, right?
In some instances, I guess it is.
Okay, cool. I think we can solve this right now. Before they ate from the tree, they were naked, right?
Yes.
And they weren't ashamed, right?
Yes. Correct.
And then they ate from the tree and they were
Mm-hmm.
then ashamed because they were naked, right?
Yes.
So they gained knowledge, and part of that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge was that it was shameful to be naked, right?
Yes.
If it's actually shameful to be naked, would it have been okay for God to punish them for being naked? You can say yes, that's the
I
right
thought
answer.
I thought they were punished for disobedience.
Wow. Please stop telling me what you think they were punished for, because I know what they were punished for. That's not the question I asked. If you answer the question
Right.
I ask, we can get there. Would it be okay if it is truly the case that being naked is immoral? Then it would be okay for God to punish them for being naked, right?
Using your example, yes.
Cool. If God was going to punish them for being naked after they ate the fruit, would it have been okay for God to punish them for being naked before they ate the fruit?
Would it have been okay? No.
Great. So before they ate the fruit, it would have been immoral for God to punish them for being naked. But once they learned right from wrong, after they ate the fruit, then it becomes moral for God to punish them for being naked. Correct?
Using that example, yes.
Awesome. You have now demonstrated that you understand that it would be wrong of God to punish them for being naked before they understood that it was wrong to be naked. So if they didn't understand that it was wrong to eat from that tree, how can God punish them for eating from the tree before they ate from the tree?
Punish them before they ate from the tree?
Right?
No.
See,
When Matt's
After.
right, right. Would it be moral for God to then punish them after they ate if they didn't know that the eating was a bad thing to do?
No, it would not be moral.
And yet that's what he did, right?
yeah. And Marjorie, just to drive home the point, because earlier we came to the same impasse before, and you said, well, we don't have enough information. We don't really know whether or not they had the knowledge of good and evil. Um, uh,
What I said was,
Genesis, yeah, hold on, but Genesis 3:22 clearly says, and the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil.
mm-hmm.
Man did
Right.
not know, and now he does know. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and also take from the tree of life and eat and live
Right.
forever. So before you eat the tree of
Mm-hmm.
life, you don't have the gift of life, and afterwards you do. So the whole point of this is Adam and Eve committed a quote unquote sin when they were
Mm-hmm.
ignorant of what even good and bad is. And then God punished them for it. Now, hopefully, all of us can agree punishing somebody like that in that type of situation is the same as punishing a 1-year-old for drawing on the wall.
Hello.
I'm here.
She's pondering.
Well, Okay.
Oh,
I'm not.
Okay. So you're not thinking and you're not answering. Why don't we stick a pin in it here? You think about that stuff, and if you come up with something that could show us why we should believe in a God where there's a fanciful story where the only thing that we can agree on is that God was immoral.
You're not going to like what I say. So I'm not going to say it.
Well, it
Because
hasn't stopped you
I
so
don't
far.
want you to think
try
I'm,
us. Just let's go for it. Try us.
huh?
I said
No,
try
you're
us.
going
Let's
to
just
yell
go
at
for it.
me. You're going
I
to yell
promise
at
I won't
me.
yell. I promise I won't yell.
Eric will almost never yell. I don't think I've ever heard Eric yell. I will mute my
Okay.
mic so that even if I yell at you, you won't.
Okay. Because I can't see your faces. So
Okay.
Adam and Eve were adults. They were not fully grown, like from baby, where they have all this knowledge, like
Marjorie.
Solomon and the other. Mhm.
Marjorie, does
And
it Marjorie, the
comparing
age,
it
here's
to
the thing,
one-year-old.
the age is irrelevant. The actual number of years a person's alive is irrelevant. In fact, Adam and Eve
Okay.
may literally been 1 year old because this
Exactly.
happened supposedly after creation. But here's the thing though, doesn't matter if you're 1 year old baby without the knowledge of good and evil, or 1,000 years old without the knowledge of good and evil. From a moral standpoint,
So
with the respect of punishment, it's the same.
the 1-year-old, if I tell a 1-year-old, don't write on the wall, they may not even understand that. If I tell an adult who just got finished naming all the animals, you know, pontificating about,
An
yeah.
adult without the knowledge
that
of good and evil.
Yeah. See,
Okay,
Marjorie, you're getting hung up
but
on.
they will
hang on.
You're trying to,
school.
Marjorie.
No. Let's start with the
Marjorie's
timeline.
Right.
Somebody's born.
Yes,
At some point in the future, after they're born, they learn the difference between right and wrong.
exactly.
If you punish them before that, it's immoral. And if you punish them
Right,
after that, it's not immoral.
correct.
It doesn't matter if you've been alive for a day, a week, a year, a decade, a millennium. If you don't learn right and wrong until you actually grab the fruit and eat it, then you
Right.
can't be held responsible for eating it, because at the time that you ate it, you didn't know it was wrong, right?
Mr. Matt, correct.
Okay. So it doesn't matter whether Adam was physically appearing as if he was an adult or not. When Adam ate the fruit, he did not know that it was wrong to eat the fruit.
Marjorie, let's pretend that I have the ability. Let's say there's alien life somewhere and there's like another civilization somewhere else out there. Let's say I had the ability to pluck one of those aliens off of his planet and put him onto a sidewalk in one of our cities in our world. He has no knowledge of our laws, no knowledge of what we consider to be right and wrong and moral. He immediately jaywalks. And then we immediately tackle him and throw him into prison and fine him $150, or jail. I'm sorry. Tackle him, throw him into jail, fine him $150. Is that good? Is that just? Is that moral and right?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure. Go ahead.
Using your example,
Sure.
did you tell him not to jaywalk?
Nope. Because he doesn't even have he doesn't even have the capability to process
Then yes,
what
that
is
is
right and wrong under our
immoral
moral system.
because there was no discussion, nothing was said.
Yeah.
If I take somebody
It is immoral.
if I take someone who doesn't know right from wrong and I tell them, don't touch my licorice,
Mm-hmm.
and they touch my licorice,
Mm-hmm.
is is it okay to punish them?
Does chastisement or rebuke follow in that? Is that included in your punishment? Or we only...
Wow.
It's okay to...
It's so strange watching you twist and turn to try to find
I'm not going to
any
ask the
way.
question.
Yes, I'm not an idiot. I've done this for decades. You are
I
trying to twist
understand
and
that.
turn. I'm trying to twist and turn
You
in order to
told them
avoid.
not to eat
Shut
your
up!
licorice. They ate it. I get it.
Shut up! Listen to me. Stop interrupting. The point I was making is, if they don't know right from wrong, what difference does it make if I tell them not to touch my licorice? They don't know that it's wrong to touch it, and they don't know if it's right to touch it. So your point about did he tell them not to eat it is completely irrelevant, because he could tell them all day long, don't do that, and they would not know that it was wrong to disobey.
Eve told the serpent, we may eat freely of every tree except this one. She understood.
No, that is not a statement of understanding right from wrong. That is a statement of, we were told not to do this. That doesn't mean that you know it's wrong, does it?
That's true.
And so if you didn't know it was wrong, which we've already fucking established about 10 times now, from both what the scripture actually says and from what you assumed and from what any reasonable person would assume, that if they didn't know it was wrong to be naked before and they knew it was after, that the tree eating that fruit gave them the knowledge of good and evil, which is why it's called the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You don't have to fucking bend over and twist around. You can just look at it straightforward. Before they ate from that fruit, before they ate that fruit, they did not know right from wrong. And therefore, at the moment they ate the fruit, they did not know that they were doing something wrong. And if they didn't know they were doing something wrong, it doesn't matter if someone told them not to. They didn't know it was wrong.
I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that, yes, they may have heard the command, but the understanding of what that meant was not there.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. I understand.
So, for example, do you speak Spanish?
Very little.
So if I were to say, no comas esta fruta, do you know what that means?
I heard the word fruit.
Yeah. But was I telling you to eat the fruit or telling you not to eat the fruit? You don't know.
I think I heard it. I don't.
Yeah. And would it be wrong of me to hold someone who doesn't understand Spanish responsible for not doing what I said? No, you
It would
don't
be
have
wrong.
to. Yeah.
It would be wrong.
And so this is why this Bible story, which we've read many times and spent time thinking about, and this is just the first one. In that story, the God character is immoral. And what's worse, the serpent tells the truth. The serpent that in the story is portrayed as the liar, the serpent did not lie. The serpent told the truth, because Eve says, in the day, we were told that in the day we eat of it, we shall surely die. And the serpent says, you will not die. For God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And then she eats it. And what happens? She does not die. She does not die. And God says, behold, the man has become like us, knowing good and evil. So the serpent said, you're not going to die. You're going to be like God and know good and evil. They eat it and they don't die. And God himself says, behold, they are like us, knowing good and evil. So the serpent told the truth, right?
No, because then death came in.
No,
But
the
the other
serpent
thing,
told the
yes,
truth. The serpent told the truth.
people began to die.
That's not. Did God say, in the day you eat the fruit, a process of everyone dying will begin? No.
No, right.
What did he say? He said, in the day you eat it, you shall surely die,
You'll
right?
die.
Did they die that day? Did they die that
Nope.
day? And
Mm-mm.
the serpent said, you will not die that day. You will become like gods, knowing good and evil. And what part of that what the serpent said, what part of that wasn't true?
You're not going to like my answer.
I'm sure I won't, because anybody reasonably paying attention would say the serpent did not lie, because the serpent did not lie. What did the serpent say that was a lie?
You shall not surely die.
Yeah. How is that a lie?
Because it's a clock that's ticking every day. We closer to it.
I give up. I'm done.
Please.
So Marjorie,
Mr. Matt,
Marjorie, just kind of wrap this up. We've been talking about this for 45 minutes.
Yes, you have, and I appreciate you. I really, really do.
Yeah, we appreciate you too, Marjorie. Thank you for the call. The thing we've been talking about in general, in apologetics, counter apologetics circles, is called problem of evil, because Christians claim an omnibenevolent, omniscient, omnipotent God exists. And when we examine these other claims around this God, namely with the morality of punishing people who don't know any better, the fact that he even needed to have a system like this to begin with, and the fact that we have to sit here and argue about these things today because the Bible is insufficient to answer these questions that we're posing. When you couple all this together, this strongly indicates to us via contradiction, if you want to go that far, that this God, this triomni God, doesn't exist, because there are inconsistencies with that claim and the claims the Bible are making. So this is the major hangup around this: is that an all-powerful God could have made the story better, or could have implemented a strategy that is better than putting two ignorant people in the middle of a garden with a cursed tree, basically. If he was all-knowing, he could have written a better story about it to help clear up these problems that we're having today talking about it. And if he was all-loving, he wouldn't punish descendants of these people or the people themselves because they were ignorant. Take any one of those, it directly contradicts the claims that Christians make about this God. Now, there's all kinds of solutions to the problem of evil. Just water down your God a little bit. Well, anyway, he wasn't all loving. He was just maximally loving. Or he wasn't all powerful. He was just maximally powerful. But he couldn't do some things. Like, there's all kinds of ways around that. But the Christians that claim that God is omni traits doesn't jive with this story and doesn't jive with our understanding of anything. And that's why we cling on to these things and talk about it, is because these refute the triomni Christian God.
And I appreciate all of those arguments that you give, because I have been, when I hear different people on your channel say those very things and other arguments like it, I'm like, God, what am I supposed to say? How do I, because I do want to engage in the conversation. I'm not dismissive of anyone. I'm like, God, what am I supposed to say? And if I may, for 5 seconds, I do have a word of the Lord for Matt.
Oh, yes, I promised we'd do that. I do want to say, though, how do you get this word of the Lord, and how do you know that it's for me?
So I saw you on a podcast and you brought up some amazing arguments. And I went into prayer and I was like, Lord, how do I respond to that? I don't even know. And this is before I had even heard of this channel called The Line. And I saw you in a debate. Forgive me. I saw you in a debate. And I began praying for you because, you revealed in this debate your background, how you were studying to become a preacher, how you were in the church for many, many years. And the thing that grabbed me from your discourse was that you had been asking God for evidence. You had been asking God for evidence. So I began praying for you. I said, Lord, I don't know what to say to him. I'm not dismissive of anyone. I welcome the discourse. I love, the conversation. And this is what, after days, this is what he replied to me, that your spirit, Mr. Matt, cried out over and over again to him for evidence. And when he sent it, you rejected it. And you thought it was things of, nature. And he said, I'm not apart from my creation. So when you experienced me, because you were wondering, am I experiencing him? Is this authentic? And then you said you had feelings similarly in other places. And the Lord says, I'm not apart from my creation. You will experience. I've given you unctions. I've given you impressions. And you were asking, is that me? Is that you? Is that you? And he's saying, yes, it was. And that's all I have.
Okay. That's a load of bullshit and garbage. No God.
Okay.
No God could possibly, that knows me, no God that knows me could possibly have said that to you. So your word of God is your own brain or some other thing that's deceptive, because it's absolutely not the case. And if you went and prayed and asked God what to say to me, and that's what God told you to say, God is fucking with you and trying to make you look bad, because you just came on a show to suggest that God gave you insight into my inner workings and how he kept presenting me with evidence, when the sort of things you're talking about are not sufficient evidence to warrant belief in a God and are not part of my story. So you're wrong.
Okay. Thank you for the time, guys.
But here's the thing. Now that I've told you that, do you still believe God told you that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you'd rather believe a being that you can't demonstrate is true, that seems to only interact with you, even after it provides false information, rather than the person, the real life person who just spent more time with you than any God has ever spent, trying to help you understand a fairly simple ethical problem. No God has ever spent 45 minutes with anyone, as far as we can tell. But I just spent that time desperately trying to help you. And every time I gave up, you're like, please don't, please don't. And so I stayed here. And then we get through all of that only for you to tell me what you think God wanted you to say. Why would God want you to say something that has such a negative effect and which I know to be false? Why would God do that?
I specifically asked about your statement. And your statement on the interview that I saw was,
my statement on the interview is irrelevant to the question I just asked you. Why would God ask you to tell me something that I know to be untrue?
you said, why would he? And I'm telling you what I asked him. And that
How
was
is
your
what how
statement.
is what how is what you asked him in any way an answer to my question of why would God tell you to tell me
Mhm.
things that I know to be untrue?
Okay, it was a conversation. I asked a question, he answered, and that's
Wow. I completely understand that you asked a question and you think God answered. My question is, why was his answer something that I know to be a lie?
okay. And that's fine.
No, it's a
I'm not.
fucking question, Marjorie. Why did God tell you to tell me something that I know to be untrue? You don't get to, that's a question. You don't just respond with, it's fine. Why
If you don't.
did God,
Mhm.
why did God tell you to tell me things that I know to be untrue live on a fucking show? Why is God punking you and embarrassing you by making you look ridiculous?
I'm not embarrassed.
I know you're not, but you should be. Why
I'm
is
not.
God telling you things that I know to tell me that I know to be untrue? Why would God do that? Put yourself in God's shoes and explain to me why he tells you to tell me something that I know is untrue.
Well, could it be? I can't speak for him in that regard, why he would say it, but could it be that he wants you to revisit your relationship with him?
Goodbye, Marjorie. Okay.
I was wanting to bring it up, but I didn't want to drag the call on any longer. But Marjorie, I'll just go ahead and make this comment. And I can't read your mind, unlike some other what Christians claim. I can't read your mind. I don't know what your emotional state is, but I want you to ask yourself and honestly answer this in your private moments on your own. Ask yourself, if tomorrow you realize that Christianity was false and the Bible wasn't espousing truth, how would you feel? How would you feel in the moment? How would you feel next week, a year from now? What would be your entire outlook? And then hold on to that answer. Go back to the beginning of this call, rewatch the whole thing. And every time you evade a question, every time you don't answer us straight, every time we hit upon something that causes you some discomfort in the conversation, ask yourself, is that emotion that I predict myself having if Christianity was false, is that influencing my ability, hindering my ability to answer honestly and objectively here in this moment of the conversation? And I think if you can do that, like I said, do it on your own. You have to call back and tell us how you felt about it or anything like that. But
Don't
ask
call
yourself,
back and tell me.
how much is your need for this to be true influencing your ability to objectively analyze it? And maybe you'll come across and say, yeah, I don't see at all any conflict here. I, personally, like I said, I can't read your mind, but I am sensing it all over the place in this conversation. Is that we're hitting barriers and we're hitting little red lines like, whoa, once I cross this line and say, hey, maybe God was immoral in punishing people who didn't know any better. Once I cross that line, oh no, now I'm in deep trouble. I fear what happens if I do that. Ask yourself, is that fear in you? Is that fear preventing you from answering it honestly? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. I can't read your mind. But ask yourself that because we just had 50 minutes on that call and we had ups and downs. And I think I appreciate the conversation overall. I was glad Marjorie called in, but I think that might be holding you back from really being honest with yourself about some of these things that we brought up.
It is
Just my two
incredibly
cents.
painful to
Yeah.
keep asking the same question over and over and over again and keep trying to come up with new analogies. It's good exercise. It forces us to try to come up with new ways of doing it. But even when I got analogies that were instantly obvious,
Yeah.
it didn't translate. There's a roadblock that's put up there. And it's
Because like,
because religions in general, and Christianity in particular, is really good at putting
yeah.
up barriers to any sort of challenge. And I was waiting for the thou shalt not put the Lord thy God to the test. That's the next one. And it
Yeah.
basically, in a way, Marjorie almost kind of started with that because she's like, who are we to judge God governing, in his sovereignty? And then once we got past all that, it got down to, oh, and then we needed the word of the Lord. It's so
Mhm.
strange to me that th- here's something to think about. Eric, the Lord just gave me a word for you. And he says that he's tired of you masturbating to couch porn, like photographs of couches. That's reserved for JD Vance only. But he knows that every Tuesday you have been having a session while thinking about the couch. That's what God wanted me to tell you. I'm not judging. If Eric absolutely knows that that's not true, then I just demonstrated that everything I've said about the God I believe in is not true. It cannot be the case that I'm getting an actual message from a truthful God that knows Eric if the information I present isn't true. And nothing would if Eric was still on the fence and I told him that was the message from my God, Eric would be absolutely in his rights to completely dismiss my God. Well, there may be a God somewhere, but any God that says I jerk off on Tuesdays to pictures of couches, that's just not true. If there was a real God and it gave me that message, it would be trying to embarrass me. The fact that I'm too clueless to be embarrassed is not the issue. But we know that if your God, unless your God is also lying, or your God wants to make you look bad or whatever else, maybe God's, but that's the sort of thing. If I told Marjorie, look, I got a message from God and he told me that, you've been eating puppies. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. And if God told me you're eating puppies and you're not eating puppies, then of course my conclusion is, hey, somebody just said couch hub and that's going to make me laugh. But it doesn't make sense that a God would give you false information to give to me live on a show.
Yeah. Besides, like, how would you, like, how do you even verify any of that? Like, this is not a reliable way of determining whether or not this God actually spoke to Marjorie. Like, if a God was really concerned about, in fact, Marjorie, if you're still listening, here's a challenge. If your God is really concerned with my salvation and the salvation of all the people watching this right now, and the thousands, tens of thousands more will watch afterwards, and this is a new concept to me, so I was really interested in listening to it. Marjorie, have a word with the Lord about me and have him give me next week's lotto numbers. And if I win, I will donate every single dollar to a charity, a Christian charity, in the name of you and your God. I'll keep $1, frame it on my wall to remind me of this event, this miraculous event in my life. Like, that's a real test. That is something that would really move me. But no, Marjorie calling in saying, well, I talked to God and I got these feelings that, hey, Matt, you were hurt, or Matt, you were stumbled by somebody in the congregation, or Matt, you had a sinful heart and you wanted, fame and popularity, or you just wanted to sin, or Eric, you wanted to fuck couches. Not denying that, but but like
there's some good looking couches out there.
Nice maroon leather, yeah. But no, like, this is not evidence. Anybody who believes something based off of that criteria, I'm sorry, is a moron. Like, how do you even come to that conclusion? Anyway, I'm sure Christians are going to say, oh, that's Eric's calling all Christians morons because that's what they do. But it's like that from my perspective, it's like, how is this even evidence? How do you even come to these type of miraculous, spectacular conclusions based on such a process?
Hey, if you liked this video, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't
That's
like
what
it,
you would say.
subscribe.
Okay.
You didn't even give me a chance.
There was such a long pause. 2 months there.
What are you on speed or
All right,
something? I barely had a
Let's
chance.
try again. Hey, I hope you liked. Hey, I hope you. Fuck. Hey there. I hope you liked that clip. Hey, I hope you liked that clipper just now, the one that you just watched with your eyes. If you did like it, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't like it, tell Jimmy to go fuck himself.
Hey, I hope you liked that clip right now. If you did like it, why don't you hit that like button?
And if you didn't like it, go ahead and subscribe anyway.